Time it is. Polling time. This is from the Express UK. Prince Harry and Meghan are humiliated, I tell you, as new poll finds that they are not good role models. How do we know that they are humiliated? The headline, because they're not quoted, so this is just conjecture, but okay. Now we are going to come back to this article later and look at what they pulled from the polls. But first, let's check out this poll, shall we? So if you scroll through the article, you will see that it's surveyed in the Mail Online poll. Let's click on it, shall we? Which takes us to this Daily Mail article. Boost for the King is exclusive poll for Mail Online's new royal site shows strong public support for Charles as monarch, plus huge backing for William and Kate despite months of turmoil. Everything's fine, it's all good, everything's fine. But where's the poll? If you scroll all the way down to the bottom of this article, you will find that this is an exclusive survey by Delta Poll. They interviewed about 1,500 British adults online between March 24th to 27th. And then the data has been weighed to be representative of the British adult population as a whole. What's interesting is that the headline for this article talks about it in terms of all the turmoil that has happened over the past few months. And I would argue the past few weeks. The Guardian series, The Cost of the Crown, Kate's ancestor basically forcing Lincoln's hand to sign the Emancipation Proclamation, articles about William's temper, etc., have all come out in the last few weeks, not to mention Prince Harry saying that he is going to attend the coronation. I'm sure it takes time to take polling results and turn it into data that outlets can use, but this already feels incredibly out of date. Not to mention it's a pretty small sample size. But obviously our next step is to search for Delta Poll and see if we can find the methodology. And on the seventh day, God said, "Rejoice, for we have methodology." I'm pretty sure. So unlike some of the other polls that outlets use, this one actually has methodology behind it. It's nearly a 200-page PDF. So let's just say I skimmed it. I want to show you some of the data points that I found interesting, and to show you that you really can just mine whatever you want from polling to tell the story that you want to tell. Because I actually think there's a clearer and more interesting story here than the Express UK and the Daily Mail picked out. I can't find an actual example of what the survey looked like when people took it. I'm assuming that people were asked background information on this survey, and then they could break it up into male, female, by generation, by if you own your house or not, by if you voted to remain in the EU or not, etc. So let's get into some of the data points. I'm going to tell you right off the bat what I think the actual story is from this data. And this is true across almost all questions asked in the survey. And that is if you are under the age of 34, in particular 18 to 25, you are more likely to be disillusioned by the monarchy. The monarchy is less popular with young people, which seems like a potential problem. Also, if you're over the age of 65, you are more likely to think Prince Harry has done more damage to the British royal family than Prince Andrew. Wow. I mean, there's an article. And it's important to look at how these questions are worded. For example, taking everything into account, who from the following do you think has made a positive contribution to the United Kingdom? Well, considering the fact that Harry and Meghan haven't been in the UK for the past 3 years, it makes sense that they would be pretty low on this list. I also wonder if you were able to choose multiple people or not. It's unclear. This is another interesting question. Who are the best value for the money? We're in the money. I'm not sure why you would even compare the two couples in this instance because Meghan and Harry aren't supported by the taxpayers. I would also love to see if this answer changes at all if people have read the Cost of the Crown series from The Guardian. Here is the role model question that is the basis for the Express UK headline. Which of the following two couples do you believe are better role models? What are we defining as the parameters for good role models? Really, I think this could just say, who do you like better? I think that's probably the more realistic and honest question there. And again, what's interesting here is that the smallest gap between the numbers are for the 34 and under set. Another, does the data actually show Charles is popular? The below question is basically, who should have been king after the Queen passed? Until you get to 35 and up, the majority think it should have been Prince William. Generational divide seems like that could be a story. But negative stories about Meghan and Harry get clicks, so... Here's another. Pay attention to how the question is worded. Thinking about Prince Harry, which one of the following statements comes closest to your view on his recent actions? The first one is, I support the public criticism Prince Harry has made of members of the royal family. This could have easily said, I support the public criticism Prince Harry has made about the royal rota, about the way his family has been targeted by the media. That might garner different results. Just as an aside, this one here is definitely going to be used for a future article. I can feel it in my bones like oncoming rain. Let's go back and see what the articles pulled from this data. Back to the original article. First of all, we have a slight problem. This headline says Prince Harry and Meghan humiliated as new poll finds they are not good role models. That's not the question that was asked. The question was, between the two couples, which do you believe are better role models? The question is asking you to pick one of the two. Who is better? And in fact, some people could have answered that question as, well, I think the Prince and Princess of Wales are better, but I don't think the Sussexes are bad role models. But that's not the headline. Quote, in another painful blow for Harry, 64% of those surveyed said that they would remove him from the line of succession if they had an opportunity to do so. I don't know if that's a blow. He's not a working royal. Another quote. King Charles's popularity has soared since he has ascended the throne, as 64% now say they believe he will be a good monarch. One, I don't know what they mean by soared because there's no data comparison that were provided in the methodology. But also, depending on how you want to frame this article, you could look at 64% and say, only a little over half of people think King Charles will be a good king. See, it just depends on the story you want to tell with the data. What this article doesn't mention is that a majority of young people doesn't think that there's going to be a monarchy in 50 years. But let's just ignore that. And then there's this Daily Mail article that's tied into their new royal site, which is part of the reason they did this poll. This headline and subsequent article does not make clear that this data from this survey is from a specific period of time, March 24th to March 27th, before a lot of the stuff has come out in April with the cost of the crown, some of the unflattering articles about William and Kate. Interestingly, they do pull out that question about will Britain have a monarchy in 50 years' time? And it just says 51% said they believed that Britain would still have a monarchy in 50 years' time. That's accurate. One could also say only about half of the British population thinks there will be a monarchy in 50 years' time. What does that say about the popularity of the British monarchy? Not to mention how the answer differs when you break it up by generations, which I still think is the larger story. I know numbers are impressive. Polls are impressive. They seem trustworthy and serious, and I'm not saying that they are not. There is good polling out there. What I'm saying is if you see this splashy, big, bold headline about polling, ask yourself, what's the methodology? And then dig into the actual methodology. Read it for yourselves and come to your own conclusions. Because otherwise the data is just being interpreted by someone else for you. And they may have different motives.